All good, thank you.
Right, good. We can hear you. That's good. Robert, are we recording yet? We are recording. We advise the meeting as recorded. It's subject to repeated viewing on the council's YouTube page. Can I ask everyone to switch off your mobile phones or put them to silent mode, please? And if you need to sneak out and do a phone call, that's all right. Just discreetly, quietly sneak out and come back in again after your phone call. That's no problem. We'll go to Eileen Anderson, who's going to call the SEDA.
Good morning, members. Can I get you to confirm your attendance when I call your name, please? Councillor Mabin.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Cogley. It's on our way.
Councillor Cogley's on her way. She had a problem this morning. Should be here soon.
Councillor Canning.
Present, thanks.
Councillor McFadden. Councillor Barton.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Sangster.
Here, good morning.
Councillor Todd.
Here.
Councillor McGregor.
Here, thank you.
Councillor Lennox.
Morning, here.
Councillor Kyle.
Present.
And Councillor Hogg.
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eileen. We any apologies?
No.
No apologies. Well, Chair's remarks. We'll welcome everyone to the meeting. We've got some guests this morning from education colleagues. We've got Lee McPhail, who's head teacher at Auchinleck Primary School, and ECC, and that's respect of item 3 in the agenda. Welcome, Lee. We've got Elizabeth Hastings, who's the head teacher, and Claire Crawford, deputy head teacher at St Andrews Primary School and ECC. So thank you for that. And you're supported by Robin, who's here as education management support. Well, have I got that right? Yeah, sort of. Right, thank you. Any declarations of interest before we move on to the first item on the agenda? I wouldn't think there would be any. No declarations of interest. Thank you. Previous minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of March. Can we have approval as correct record?
Happy to approve the minute, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox. Seconder.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. And consideration any matters arising from previous minutes? None. Thank you. Councillor Sangster.
Yeah, thank you. In regards to page 4, with regards to the previous and ongoing work with the Transport Review Group towards reducing ASN transport costs, I'm just wondering how the work with the Transport Review Group, including the potential increase for use of public transport, ensuring that transport arrangements for ASN pupils remains focused on individual needs. I'm just wary that I don't want us to be creating any barriers to accessing education and wider opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. Linda.
Through you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Sangster, and an incredibly important ask in this regard. So as of Monday this week, a review group has been stood up in respect of strategic transport in terms of the council and its endeavours to ensure not only do we look at ASL transport, given the imminence of the new ASL centres that were signed off at council a few weeks ago, those being in Netherthird and New Milns, and clearly the ongoing developments that we've got at On Thank and obviously Nether Robertland. So ultimately we're clearly redistributing a lot of the young people only at P1 level into those centres. So with that entails a full review of all of those particular cases. So the good news is, Councillor Sangster, the Transport Review Panel continues to meet to ensure that the correct mode of transport is given to the young people in terms of those particular needs, because clearly there are several facets in here around about looking at what else we could do in terms of expanding what we currently have, looking at the transport routes from a public perspective, and clearly we gave council some updates that we would be looking at the municipal transport as well. So we're actually hopeful that by beginning with the ASL transport piece and ensuring that clearly from a statutory perspective, all young people are getting to school in whatever modus operandi that might take in terms of form of transport. But the group was stood up this week, several colleagues in here on that group, around about the way that we get young people to school, and indeed looking at utilising potentially the right resource at the right time, but clearly in terms of that commitment to council to reduce the spend. Around about more individual type arrangements that are not necessary, but where a particular mode of transport is necessary, I can absolutely give you that reassurance that the young people will still be considered for access to that through a process that's already been through the group here around about the Transport Review Panel. So I hope that's helpful, and I think my colleague David Mitchell would like to come in through you, Chair.
Just to support everything Linda said, we were both at the meeting of the review group. Just to give members assurance, there's two separate parts to this. Council's aware that in last year, Council reviewed the policy which looked at the level of entitlement to transport of what we call ASN pupils. The review of the policy led to a reduction in that entitlement back to managing demand over budget. The next stage is to reduce the council's dependency. The council's dependency in one particular type of transport, which is taxis. What we're looking at there isn't a straight move to the public transport network. There's two separate things that are in danger of getting conflated, but they are separated by the commas in the bullet point, which is reducing ASN transport costs. That isn't about further reducing entitlement. We've done that piece of work. You can only wring the sponge once, whatever analogy you want to use. And what we're now looking at is how do we reduce the number of taxis we have to use, and how do we get a better arrangement of transport? But that would be likely be between the council and somebody of the ilk of community transport, the Goldfield Community Transport. The wider piece is, as members have raised many times in chamber, at council and elsewhere, is there more we could do around a public bus service to fill some of the other gaps in the rural areas? And clearly, if there is scope to bring those two together, because if you were providing buses in a model to a provider and there was other capacity to use them to address some of those other issues, that's where they might come together. But this is not trying to a further attempt to reduce. The new threshold will apply to all new cases. This is now about the council saying, and members who were involved in the call-in December are cited on the level of expenditure in taxis. It was £4 million a year. It's now near £3 million a year, but that still needs to come down against a £2 million budget. So the next question, having reviewed entitlement, is how do we provide better and more cost-efficient forms of transport than the sum of the taxis? But we're hearing the members who were particularly involved in the call-in are aware of the issue. So it's to give assurance that this is not a move, and I can appreciate how that might read, but that's why it just says the possibility of increased use. That's, as I said, that wider piece. What's the knock-on effect if we provide buses to a provider to provide better or alternative forms of transport to our pupils? Is there also scope and capacity to use those vehicles to fill some of those other gaps for the general public at other parts of the day when they're not doing the school run? So it's just to give that absolute clarity of assurance and to let you know otherwise that work is under play. And I think will be a report coming forward to perhaps council in June, but May or June, but in the next couple of months there should be something coming forward that sets it all out. But it's just to give you that assurance. It's not a straight move to public transport, because we understand the needs of our pupils, as do you.
Thank you, Linda and David, for that clarification. At this stage, before we go into item 3, at this stage, officers will be presenting reports. They've been issued well in advance of today's meeting, and elected members have had the opportunity to read the reports beforehand. Therefore, officers should keep presentations brief and focused on the main points. I would ask elected members as well, if you have any questions or comments you want to raise, please tell us the page, the paragraph in the report that you're referring to with your question or comment, and then everyone in the room can follow the point you're making or the question you're asking. Thank you. We'll move to item 3 in the agenda, which is Auchinleck Primary School and ECC inspection report. And for this one, we're going to Graham McGinn.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members and colleagues. Members, the report presents findings of a report by Education Scotland, His Majesty's Inspectorate of Education, following the inspection of Auchinleck Primary School and Early Childhood Centre. It's a detailed report and I won't go through it line by line, but just to highlight some of the key areas. The recommendations are highlighted in paragraph 2 and the aims of inspection are detailed in paragraphs 3 to 8. If I could highlight, members, paragraph 8, and that is that the inspection that took place at Auchinleck Primary School and Early Childhood Centre was a full inspection model, so that had the 4 quality indicators that are detailed in paragraph 8. Moving on to the inspection process in paragraphs 9 to 12, that details the inspection process, and similarly paragraphs 13 to 20 detail the role of the care inspectorate where appropriate. Members, if I can take you to paragraphs 21 to 24, that details the East Ayrshire Early Childhood Centre quality monitoring visits, and similarly paragraphs 25 to 27 detail the East Ayrshire Primary School quality improvement visits. If I can take you into the detail of the report, and that starts at paragraph 28, and that's Auchinleck Primary School East Ayrshire quality improvement visits and the quality improvement visit for the primary school. So 2 learning visits took place at Auchinleck Primary School. A 2-day quality improvement visit was carried out at the school in September 2024 and a further one in September 2025. And a number of follow-up visits have taken place to the school to support them with their ongoing improvement journey. Members, you'll be familiar with the reference to the quality improvement visits, and I do want to highlight at this point that they are proving to be very highly impactful in supporting school improvement, and I'm sure both Lee and Claire and Elizabeth will be able to testify to that. Looking at the specifics of the visits to Auchinleck Primary School, that focused on developing quality assurance processes, fully embedding high quality learning, teaching and assessment, and the development of the curriculum. Moving on to the findings from the inspection report. So the Auchinleck Primary School and Early Childhood Centre was inspected in week beginning Monday 19th of January 2026 with HMI inspectors using the full inspection model like I've already mentioned. The evaluations for the school and the Early Childhood Centre are detailed in paragraphs 31 and 32, members. And paragraph 33, HMIE found the following strengths of the school's work. And I want to highlight just a few of these. I won't go through every single one. So the first one, the collective responsibility and positive attitude for continued improvement shared by all staff across the school, led effectively by the head teacher. The staff team worked very well together through clearly defined leadership roles. This is resulting in improved outcomes for children's well-being, attainment and achievement. Next bullet point, just briefly, the caring and nurturing ethos across the school and nursery, which is underpinned by highly positive relationships. And I'm sure members who have visited the establishment have certainly experienced that. I certainly have any time I've visited. Children in the school and nursery are happy, polite, respectful and welcoming. They enjoy learning and are very proud of their school. The collaboration of staff and key partners to improve learning, teaching and assessment across the school and nursery. And finally, in this section, the approaches adopted by staff to promote inclusion and meet the wellbeing needs of children in the school and nursery, all highlighted as strengths of the school's work by inspectors. Similarly, inspectors identified a number of areas where continued improvement. It's important to highlight the word continued because the school is already working on these improvements. To continue to improve and strengthen further pupil voice, for children to undertake leadership roles, and to develop a greater understanding of diversity and inequality in society. Similarly, staff should continue to raise attainment in literacy and numeracy, and in the nursery, staff should continue to develop the curriculum to ensure children make progress in all areas of their learning. So again, just highlighting, members, that that's the continued improvement because the school and nursery are already working on these. In terms of a response to the inspection, members, I'd like to draw your attention to paragraph 35. The school will build on the strengths and address the areas for continued improvement via ongoing school improvement activity. And the report itself actually helps the school to plan for next year's improvement activity, something that Lee already has well underway. Inspectors are confident that the school has capacity to continue to improve, and therefore they will make no further visits in connection with the inspection. And paragraph 37, a professional learning session has already been scheduled for head teachers to learn from the experience of inspection of the head teacher of Auchinleck Primary School and Early Childhood Centre. And I should say, members, that at the time of writing this, the session was scheduled, but it now actually has taken place. Lee presented to a number of head teachers to share his experience to be able to support them in terms of their ongoing school improvement journey and also to help prepare for inspection. So, members, happy to take any questions, but I hope you agree, a very positive report. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. We're going to go to Lee to tell us a wee bit about the school and his experience of this inspection, and it can be quite a stressful thing for the senior leadership in the school, and then we'll open it to questions, comments from the elected members. We go over to you, Lee. Tell us a wee bit about your school.
Thank you very much. It is without a doubt a stressful experience, but what I would say is what you can see as part of that report is there's a real team effort about this in terms of East Ayrshire Council, with the quality improvement visits we had with the learning visit process, and also the quality improvement visits to our early childhood centre as well. I felt that support throughout this entire process, and I felt that there was this real kind of group feeling behind me where I could ask people for support and advice. And that's something that I'd say is very beneficial, because you don't feel alone in this process. And myself, my management team and my staff and the support staff did not feel alone. We felt that we had the support of our colleagues across the local authority, and that was very beneficial without a shadow of a doubt. Auchinleck Primary School, it's an absolute pleasure to be the head teacher of Auchinleck Primary School and Early Childhood Centre. I've been there now for 4 years, and over that time period we have been in a journey of improvement, and we have continually looked at our self-evaluation processes to make sure that we feel like our school is where we want it to be, and we were very happy to receive a good inspection report, but we want to move on to the next part now. We don't just want to be good, we want to be excellent. So we've already been for a visit. I've already been to Glencoats Primary School in Paisley, because they got an excellent report, and I wanted to hear about what kind of things they were putting in place to make sure that they had got to the next level, because that's where I see Auchinleck. We've got big aspirations for our children there. Our last session, we received the Community Partnership of the Year Award from the King's Foundation because of our partnership work with Dumfries House and the King's Foundation, and that's something that the children received civic recognition for here at Council Chambers. And the key part there is what I mentioned was the children. The children of Auchinleck are absolutely first class. It's a pleasure to work with them on a daily basis. We're immensely proud of them. They're the most resilient, enthusiastic people you could ever come across. And that goes as well to the staff team that we have there. They gave everything for that inspection, but they do that on a daily basis. That wasn't just put on for that. And that goes from my clerical staff to my janitorial staff to our ECC staff. Everybody puts in the work, my class teachers and classroom assistants and my management team. And it's one big team feeling in Auchinleck, and we feel that we've got the support of our families and our community, and we feel that we're in a position just now where there's a bit of momentum and we can kick on from this positive report. And that's the next steps for us at Auchinleck. As Mr McGinn mentioned, we have taken the steps provided to us from HMIE, because we do want to kick on, like I said, and strike when iron's hot. And we've looked at those improvement processes, and we've started to draft them into next session's school improvement plan. And that's something that we're keen to make sure that we drive forward with. We don't want to rest on this and be like, well, we're a good school, that's as good as we can be. That's not how we are at Auchinleck. You know, we see ourselves as really pushing forward, making sure that when one of our children go to Robert Burns Academy or wherever they go to next, people look at them and they say, that's an Auchinleck primary pupil. You can tell by the way they carry themselves and how they conduct themselves. And that's something that's really important to us at Auchinleck.
Thank you very much. It is a very good report. We'll get 4 goods in the 4 categories, and the ECC 1 satisfactory and 2 goods. So you're obviously doing very well, and your staff are behind you, supporting you. I'll open it up now to elected members for any questions or comments. Councillor Lennox, and this is in your ward, Willie.
Aye, thanks, Chair. I mean, I've had quite a few occasions to visit Auchinleck Primary, and I'd like just to offer my congratulations to the head teacher, the staff, and the young folk in that school. There's definitely a great culture within the school. The minute you walk through the door, you feel welcomed, and there's always somebody there to meet and greet you. I've also seen the staff and pupils out in the community supporting community events, so that's a great thing. And I feel quite positive that the aspirations of the head teacher to take this to another level, he'll get there pretty quickly. So congratulations once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox. Councillor Cogley, and then we'll go to Councillor Sangster.
Yes, thank you very much for the report and being here today. It's very good to see you all, and that clearly is extremely well done. Just a couple of things to add to that. in this committee, we so often hear about the work of the quality improvement team. And I really just wanted to re-emphasise the value of that team and the difference that that team makes, because I think it's really important that we say that here. And I think it might be quite useful for us, for a bit of context, if you just tell us how many members of staff there are and how many pupils you have, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're at 153 as a row in the primary school. The ECC just now it's sitting at 72, and we also have provision for 2-year-olds as well. We are a straight 7 class school, so we are, but we have also been supported by the Inclusion Fund to provide an additional nurture resource, which we call the ARC, which stands for the Achievement Resource Centre, where children can dip out and out, in and out of that as required to support them to maintain and manage across the school day. It's an open plan setting, so it's not a building that's maybe conducive to all children feeling comfortable at all times, but we work really closely, our staff team work really closely to make sure we plan carefully for when those transitional time periods are, because in an open plan setting it can be quite loud and it can be quite rumbly, and we try to work really hard to make sure that our children get the best possible experience across the course of the school day. My ECC staff as well throughout this process, something that I wanted to just bring up was that satisfactory for curriculum. We're already looking at that. One of the kind of comments on it was that we were spending a lot of time focusing on literacy, numeracy and health and wellbeing. We needed to make sure that we were focusing on other aspects of the curriculum as well, such as expressive arts, etc. It's not that we don't do that, but we maybe didn't sell that well enough as part of that inspection process, and that's something that we're reflecting on as a staff team currently.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Councillor Sangster.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report, and well done to the staff. It is a really good and positive report, and it's always nice to see, as you know, when it comes to governance and scrutiny, we get the pleasure of seeing these reports. Just a couple of questions around kind of paragraphs 33 and 34. Graham was talking about the kind of leadership structure and kind of collective responsibility. I think it would be quite nice to just have some examples, if you're able to provide some examples of how this kind of staff collaboration has kind of led to improved outcomes for pupils. And also just around about the pupil voice. I would like to hear more about kind of what strategies you're kind of using to strengthen the pupil voice, like how are the pupils involved in school activities? Thank you.
No problem, thank you very much. I have a management team of an acting principal teacher, which is pupil equity funded. And one of the reasons about that was because we've had a historic problem post-COVID with attendance. It's been really problematic. Pre-COVID, there wasn't an issue at Auchinleck Primary School. You can track it back and it's sitting kind of high 90s, but post-COVID, it's been an 86%. So we appointed a PE-funded acting principal teacher to try to target and support attendance. We're seeing the green shoots of that this session. We've also been involved in the National Improve Attendance Programme, but we're seeing the green shoots of that because this session we've moved from previously an attendance rate of 86% to 90% this session, and that's through different strategies that we've looked to put in place of targeting cohorts of learners, but also speaking to people across Scotland about how are you targeting this, which we know is a global problem just now. So having that additional person to really kind of try to support that has been beneficial there. So therein we're having the children in the setting more often and not just attending, but attending, present and engaged. And impacting in their attainment. In terms of pupil voice, that's something that in Auchinleck we felt we were in a positive position with, because we use pupil surveys on a regular basis and we could showcase that to the inspection team. But this kind of stemmed from our committees, which we had across the setting, which were our rights-based committee, our inclusive practice committee, our Sports Scotland committee, and we pulled them back because we felt as though we weren't making much progress with them. So we reined them back in with the model of repackaging them, rebranding them, and then putting them back out there again. But during the time of inspection, we hadn't got them back up and running again. But since the inspection, we have received our Bronze Rights Respecting School Award. We've got this kind of process starting to move forward again. And we also have plans for next session for our improvement plan to make sure that pupil voice is something we're really focusing on, and making sure that our parent voice is coming through in aspects that have been brought up in the report as well. Because, I mean, we see it as one Auchinleck. We see our pupils and our parents as being like the key to the future of the area. So it's important that they make sure that their voice is heard without a shadow of doubt.
Anyone else? Don't see any online. So could I just say from that you'll have an active engaged, you have a strong parent council committee that they're working with the school as well?
Yeah, we've got a reformed parent council who we just met with on Monday night there. They're very enthusiastic, work hand in hand with the set and attend the parent council steering groups with Director of Education also. And we've got some ideas planned up for what's coming ahead with the Commonwealth Games and a car boot sale coming up at Auchinleck if anybody's interested. But genuinely, they're very supportive of us. They support us to help make sure that we're more cost effective in funding events and things that happen to make sure that we're not pricing anybody out of fun activities, etc. Because that's also important to us, Auchinleck.
Right, thank you. Can also ask your P7, how many you got in P7? They're going to transition soon, I think. Will they all go to Robert Burns Academy, or you got one or two going somewhere else?
Yeah, we've got 25 primary 7 pupils and they'll all be going to Robert Burns Academy. And the transition process that's in place at Robert Burns Academy for these pupils has been first class. There's an enhanced transition package for several of our pupils who've already been attending. Staff have been in their school regularly from Robert Burns Academy, and children have already got to know that kind of safe person for them for starting S1. Been very impressed with that this session.
Certainly can't resist the opportunity through you, Chair, just really to add my own commendation both to the positivity around the inspection and the work that Lee and his team have done with what are absolutely fantastic staff and fantastic pupils, and indeed the parental support that sits around Auchinleck. So really just to add my own commendation and pride in what's been achieved there, but also really accepting of the comments, Councillor Cogley, around about the importance of process and structure around about the learning visits. And that's not just when we hear about inspection, that's that all year round quality assurance activity in terms of guarantors of quality and what's out there for our young people, both at the school level but also at early childhood level. So no, just want to add my own thanks to Lee and the team at Auchinleck and also my central officers for the work that they're doing in those spaces right across all the sectors.
Thank you, Linda. And if there's no other comments or questions, we'll close that item on the agenda with our thanks to Lee McPhail, head teacher at Auchinleck. Well done to yourself and everyone at the school, all your staff, pupils, parents. You're obviously doing a great job and you're on the right path and going to improve even further. So well done and thank you for attending today. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which, no, before I do that, page 7, elected members, paragraph 2 is the recommendations for this item on the agenda. And its recommendations are just for noting. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is St Andrews Primary School and ECC, and we'll go back to Graham again on this one. Thank you, Graham.
Thanks, Chair. As you mentioned earlier, Chair, we're joined this morning by Elizabeth Hastings, who is the head teacher at St Andrews Primary School and Early Childhood Centre. Elizabeth's happy for me to mention that during the inspection she was on maternity leave, and we're joined this morning by Claire Crawford, who at the time of the inspection was the acting head teacher and led the school through the actual inspection. Clearly there was lots of work going on prior to that. It wasn't just on the week of the inspection, but just to recognise that Claire is here, given that she was acting head teacher during the period of time when the inspection took place. So the report itself presents the findings of a report by Education Scotland, His Majesty's Inspectorate of Education, following the follow-up inspection of St Andrews Primary School and Early Childhood Centre. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 2, and the background to inspection is detailed in paragraphs 3 to 8. As in the previous report, the inspection process is also detailed at paragraphs 9 to 12, and the care inspectorate involvement is paragraph 13 to 20. Members, if I can draw your attention again to paragraphs 21 to 24, and that's the East Ayrshire Early Childhood Centres quality monitoring visits, and also paragraphs 25 to 27, which is the school quality improvement visits. Members, I would like to draw your attention to paragraph 28, and that's details that 2 quality improvement visits took place at St Andrews Primary School and Early Childhood Centre. The first took place in February 23 and the second took place in March 2024. In addition to the quality improvement visits, there have been regular and ongoing engagement with the school to support improvement in leadership, learning and teaching and raising attainment. Members, if I can draw your attention to paragraph 31, The initial inspection of St Andrews Primary School and Early Childhood Centre took place in March 2023. Paragraph 35, members, inspectors returned to St Andrews Primary School in May 24 and at that point identified a need for the school to have more time to continue to make required improvements and advised that they would return within 18 months of the publication of the further inspection letter. Members, moving on to paragraph 36, just to detail that in follow-up inspections, quality indicator gradings are not provided, so that's slightly different from the previous report that was presented. And instead, inspectors provide a statement regarding the progress that has been made in each area for improvement. Paragraph 37 details possible statements, 3 possible outcomes. One is that the HMIE identify that insufficient progress has been made and a further inspection will take place, or HMIE identify that progress has been made but more time is required to lead to further improvement, or the third outcome, HMIE identify that all areas of improvement have been fully progressed and they fully disengaged from the school. So in February 26, inspectors returned to St Andrews Primary School and Early Childhood Centre to evaluate the progress that's been made with areas identified in the improvement in the initial inspection. Paragraph 39 shows the table of the 3 key areas that were focus of the inspection. The first one, improved planning for continuous improvement and implementing change. And the progress comment, as you'll see, members, says that senior leaders and staff have made significant progress in this area for improvement. The next one was to develop a cohesive and consistent approach to promoting children's wellbeing and inclusion in the school. And the comment is that senior leaders and staff in the school and the ECC have made very positive progress since the last visit. And the final comment, all staff should continue to develop their understanding and use of nurture and restorative approaches which support children to build positive relationships. And the comment that HMIE made was that senior leaders and staff have made strong progress in this area. Paragraph 40, members, I would like to take the opportunity to highlight the impact of the acting head teacher who at the time of the follow-up inspection had only been in post for a short time, having previously held the post of deputy head teacher in the school. Inspectors recognised the impact that the acting head teacher had across her roles as deputy head teacher and acting head teacher, and commented that the acting head teacher has provided consistent, visible and effective leadership to the school and ECC over the past 12 months. Inspectors also noted that children, staff and parents now play a stronger role in evaluating strengths and identifying areas for improvement in the school and ECC. And staff acted upon parents' views to increase opportunities for parents to share in their child's learning through Share the Learning events and learning journals. Members, paragraph 42. Inspectors have reported positive progress in all 3 areas identified for improvement in the original inspection. As a result of the findings from the inspection, inspectors are confident that the school has the capacity to continue to improve and they will make no further visits in connection with the inspection. It's a very positive outcome of the follow-up inspection and demonstrates significant progress since the initial inspection. So very positive report, members, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Graham. It's quite interesting, this. It's a good news story, which has been going on now for 3 years. So the first inspection was February 23, second inspection March 24, and then we're back to just very recently. And you've been on a journey and you've made huge steps forward. You've made big improvements. We'll go to the head teachers and get their take on it first before we go to elected members for comments or questions. So I don't know who wants to go first. Is it Elizabeth?
I'll speak first.
Right, okay, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I took post shortly after the initial inspection in March 23. I took post in August 23. And so obviously we were keen to make the improvements that were outlined in the initial report, but March 24 was a very quick turnaround for that. So while improvements had been made, we needed more time to embed them and show that they were able to be sustained for a long period of time. During that time, it wasn't just about individual people. It was about getting the right processes in place, getting the right ethos within the school. And that can be difficult after a tough inspection process the first time around. So a lot of that was around morale building and building capacity within the whole staff across the primary and the ECC as well. But we did that. We took our time. We worked strategically to make sure the improvements were addressed, but in a way that was going to be manageable for staff wellbeing as well. But we did get a good team around us, and at that point Claire came on as my deputy, and I really appreciate the work that she has done in supporting me as an acting as deputy head, but also then the work that she carried on throughout the inspection process. So yeah, as I mentioned, it was about bringing stability to processes. Staffing is ever changing in schools, so you really have to get the right ethos and right processes going on there. As well as that, I gained my into headship qualification, and that really brought about an insight about how leadership can be effective within a school as well. So we are, obviously it was a re-inspection process, and as Mr McGinn mentioned, we don't get new grades, which in some ways is a bit of a shame, because you'd like to be able to pinpoint those things, but any visitors we've had to the school have always spoke about how very different the ethos feels within the school. So we take it from there that we have made those processes, and then the letter is very clear that we have made those progress within the areas that were required. I don't know if you want to speak a wee bit about the process itself, Claire.
So during the acting head time, when I was taking on the inspection in Elizabeth's absence, we did, again, we're very supported, the same as Lee, at Auchinleck by the central team for both the early years and the primary. We were aligned with supportive staff members who worked hard with us to align the priorities and make sure that we were ready on the day. And the staff were a great team. We wanted to really show the leadership across the school as well as within the SLT. So everybody really did come together and play their part within the inspection week. The PTs, myself, the acting deputy, who was my acting deputy at the time, was part of the processes as well. As the senior lead in the ECC, we felt that the systems were really aligned. One of the areas that they had wanted to see improve was that the school head was then taking on the ECC as well in their development, and that was something that was happening at the time when HMIE and Care Inspectorate arrived. So though we didn't get our new gradings for the HMIE report, we did get our Care Inspectorate gradings, which they graded as 3 5s, and we were delighted with that outcome as well. And again, as Elizabeth said, it's about the next steps now and continuing with the improvements that we've already made, and working together, myself and Elizabeth, as a team now, with an aligned vision and view of what we see next for St Andrews School and ECC.
Right, thank you. Would you coming back in, Elizabeth?
Sorry, I just wanted to respectfully disagree with Lee that I have the best staff and pupils and staff team. So just wanted to put that out there.
No, it's not a competition. We're all right. We're all pals. So you're part of a bigger campus there. How many teachers you got? How many other staff?
So, yeah, we're part of the St Joseph's campus, but within the primary we have a roll of 326. In the ECC there's 62. So we've got a staffing allocation of around 17 teachers. Some of that is funded through PEF, as well as some other additional funding. So a big staff team to work with, but lots of talents there to pull from and lots of expertise to pull from. And we also have a campus head who, until quite recently, was Mr Kane, sitting at the end here. And again, it's that teamwork. It isn't a one-person job. It's not one person doing this. It's not the head teacher sitting making all the changes. And I think what we are an example of is a success of the quality improvement team that has been formed. And again, as Claire said, the support that we received, yes, as part of a campus, but from the whole authority was outstanding.
And as previous, it's how many you got in primary 7? I'm thinking all of those primary 7 pupils will progress up into.
Yeah, we have 63 currently. There's one off to Kilmarnock Academy, but the rest all move on to St Joseph's. And again, that transition programme, obviously being on campus, we have lots of links with St Joseph's, but I know the other schools within the education group feel the same around the standard of transition is extremely high, and we welcome that.
Very good, thank you. And thank you, Mr Kane, for coming in as well today. Elected members, any questions or comments? Councillor Sangs.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for this report. And as the chair's alluded to, it is quite a good news story, and I'm very pleased to be reading this report. Just around paragraph 39, I'm just curious if we can drill down a wee bit deeper in what kind of operational guidance and record keeping processes have been introduced just to kind of promote the young people's wellbeing and inclusion. And how are the staff kind of meeting the needs of all the young people, and I'm thinking particularly those with additional support needs. Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, it is about getting the right processes in place and making sure we meet our statutory legislative duties. Without going into too much detail, that was a little bit woolly when I took post. So it is about making now we have clear processes and paperwork. We've got a clear calendar of commitments in terms of meeting those needs, in terms of the paperwork. But on a day-to-day basis, it's our teachers knowing our children inside out, about our community knowing it, and working with parents in that as well. So again, that calendar commitment allows for scheduled meetings with families, teams around the child, and obviously then there's flexibility when a need crops up that in an emergency or emerging circumstance. All staff now are familiar with the processes. When I took post, it very much was the leadership team took responsibility for those areas, but this is now a whole staff approach to ensuring children's needs are met. And on top of that as well, a lot of the assessment material that's now in place with an assessment calendar, not only for our subject-based areas, but around health and wellbeing, using the GMWP, the Glasgow Motivational Wellbeing Profile, thank you, and making sure we can track children's wellbeing in a measurable way and intervening when necessary. So we use our flexibility in staffing to ensure that we've got nurture groups running that are targeted towards the needs of those groups of children where we see there is a need, and then reviewing them when necessary, and then redistributing the resource if required.
Okay, Councillor Sangster, come back in.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, share the learning events. What are those? I've not heard of that.
So sharing the learning is really when we get the parents through the door and they get involved in the learning. So we started out gently with sharing assemblies and the children would present, but now the parents are in the classrooms. And the feedback that we're getting is it's great, particularly with things like maths, where children were taught differently in my day to how it is now, and the parents really appreciate the opportunity to get involved with the learning and to put more of a context with what's going on in the children's lives every day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster, for the question. Thank you for those replies. Linda, would you want to come back in? Any comments on this one?
Just really in terms of the summation through you, Chair, just to say it's been a real journey for St Andrews, and as Elizabeth pointed out, taking the school on in August after what had been a difficult inspection for the school, and really rallying the troops around about all of that in terms of the entire school community, both from the campus perspective, but also the ECC, the parents, pupils and staff, and then obviously having gone on maternity leave and Claire picking up the reins. So I really just want to commend all staff at all levels. I think Elizabeth represents the distributed leadership and profile that has taken place within the school, and I think Claire also really aptly demonstrates that as an acting head teacher coming through, but also recognising the work again that the quality improvement team have done in that space, both again in early years and indeed in primary. So a really good news story. School's been on a journey, and to have it signed off as a local authority only leaves us with one school in follow-up now, Chair. So we're working hard on that one just now, but we are now in a position that we only have one follow-up school in the entire authority. It's one too many. So we'll be working in that space. So and work is ongoing there, and we hope to be back to you with good news once the next steps are taken there. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Linda. If there's no other questions or comments, Councillor Lennox.
Thanks again, Chair. I'd just like to take this opportunity as well to congratulate the head teachers and their achievement. I don't have any questions. I think the report speaks for itself. I'd just like to share, maybe for Councillor Sangster's benefit, my own experience of shared learning. I've got vivid memories of sitting in a primary one chair with my knees up at my chin, assisting my young granddaughter to do some reading or something like that. So I've got great memories of shared learning myself. Thank you.
And those chairs are always far too wee for us. Thank you, Councillor Lennox. If there's no other questions or comments, We go to page 15, paragraph 2 is for noting, and of course we congratulate the school on the positive journey and all the staff, pupils, parents, everyone involved in the improvements that you've made. I don't know if you guys want to go now or if you want to wait. There's another education report coming, which is secondary school leaver attainment. You can wait if you like, but I completely understand if you've got duties back at your schools that you want to go to. Thank you. Item 5 on the agenda is secondary school leaver attainment, 24-25, and we're back to Graham again.
Thanks, Chair. And colleagues didn't need to be asked twice there. They were out the door as fast as you could. Thanks, Chair. So this report is a report which provides Governance and Scrutiny Committee with a summary of school leaver attainment and destinations for 24-25 following the release of Insight national benchmarking measures at the end of February 2026. Members, it is a very detailed report, and I will just highlight some areas of the report. The recommendations are listed in paragraph 2, and I just want to briefly mention Insight. It's referenced in the purpose of the report. And Insight is an online national benchmarking tool which was developed and is updated by Scottish Government to support school improvement. It provides schools and local authorities with attainment and school leaver information, and more detail will be covered through the paper. There is a reference in the paper to a virtual comparator. It's a hugely important factor for us when comparing performance. The virtual comparator in paragraph 4 consists of attainment and achievement data of young people from schools and other local authorities who have similar characteristics to the young people in East Ayrshire schools. 4 characteristics are used to identify virtual comparators: the gender, Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation, additional support needs, and stage, so that's S4, S5 or S6. And for each young person in East Ayrshire, 10 matching young people are randomly selected from other local authorities across Scotland who have these similar characteristics. An average is calculated from the attainment of the 10 matching young people, which then allows a comparison to be made with the performance of young people in East Ayrshire. The process is carried out for each young person in S4, S5 and S6 within East Ayrshire. Insight is updated twice per year in February and September. The February update, which details initial destinations and attainment of school leavers from the previous session, is referred to as the National Benchmarking Measures Update, and that's the focus of this paper. Members, there's detail further paragraphs there, but if I could take you to paragraph 14. And 14 talks about curriculum. Hugely important in terms of attainment for young people, but if I can highlight paragraph 18 in particular, members, all East Ayrshire secondary schools offer national qualifications, for example, National 5 Mathematics and Higher English. However, they do also offer a wider range of qualifications to meet the needs of all learners. Some examples ranging from sports officiating and organising down to leadership award are detailed in paragraph 18. Members, if I can draw your attention to paragraph 19, and that's school leavers by stage. If you look at table 3 in paragraph 19, what you will be able to see is the stage that each young person is leaving. And what we're seeing there then is 18% of young people, of our leavers, came from S4 in 24-25, 38% from S5 and 44% from S6. That's hugely important to highlight the impact that those figures make. So the highest percentage of young people left school at the end of S5. So we had 38% of our school leavers leaving at the end of S5. The lowest percentage of young people left school at S6 than in the previous 5 years. 44% left in S6, and you compare that with previous years, 48 the previous 2 years, 53 before that, and the average is 50% of our leavers usually come from S6. And the reason that's significant is because S6 leavers are the cohort who progress to higher education predominantly. And further than that, if you look at paragraph 21, the leaving stage figures are significant in the context also of comparing year-on-year school leaver attainment. So nationally it is recognised that young people leaving in earlier stages may be less likely to achieve with qualifications at higher SEQF levels than those leaving in S6. It's important also, though, to highlight that the needs and future aspirations of individual young people are the key factors in determining decisions for young people to leave school, rather than consideration from a purely performance perspective. So really what I'm saying there is it's not about the volume of qualifications that young people achieve, it's about achieving the right and most appropriate qualifications for them to move into whatever pathway they decide on leaving school. So it does say there that young people require the appropriate and meaningful qualifications on leaving school that will prepare them for entry into their chosen destination and pathway, rather than stockpiling qualifications simply to enhance league tables or comparisons with other schools or local authorities. Members, if I can take you to paragraph 25, and that's the school leaver initial destinations. This measure shows initial destination data of school leavers who left school between September 24 and 25. The census date for the purposes of initial positive destinations is the first Monday in October each year. And for this cohort of school leavers, the census date was Monday, the 6th of October 2025. This means that the destination that the young person was in as of Monday, 6th of October, was recorded as being the initial destination on leaving school. Members, just to draw your attention that for some young people, they will have been out of school for over a year by this date. And that's where the importance of our employability service comes in. And Marjorie Harvey, our employability manager, is with us this morning, and we'll be able to add further detail as we go through the paper. It's important also, members, to note that the census data provides a snapshot in time of destinations. This can change on a daily basis for young people. In many cases, where the initial destination was recorded as negative, young people had actually progressed to a positive destination on leaving school, but perhaps has not sustained that initial destination as of Monday the 6th of October 2025. And I will bring Marjorie in at the end of the paper to provide an update on some of the work that's been going on to support any young person who's not in a positive destination. Members, paragraph 28 details the destinations that are considered to be positive and non-positive. And paragraph 29 details that in 2024-25, 93.26% of school leavers in East Ayrshire progressed to an initial positive destination on leaving school. The highest destination areas are shown in paragraph 30. And what you'll see, members, in paragraph 30 is that fewer school leavers in 24-25 progressed to employment. That decrease in East Ayrshire is consistent with the decrease in virtual comparator and national employment figures. Similarly, if you look at the increase in progression to further education, it's 10% higher in East Ayrshire than the virtual comparator and national figures at 39.06%. And as I mentioned earlier, we tend to see S6 leavers moving on to higher education. It's the highest proportion of our leavers who move on to higher education. But given we had fewer S6 leavers in 24-25, we've seen fewer young people progressing to higher education in 24-25. Paragraph 31, members, the majority, 53.75% of East Ayrshire S4 leavers in 24-25 progressed to further education. The majority of East Ayrshire S5 leavers in 24-25 progressed to further education, and that's consistent with the overall population that we've seen in the previous tables, moving on to further education. And the majority of S6 school leavers progressed to higher education. Members, I can draw your attention to paragraph 33, and that's with any young person who does not progress to an initial positive destination is supported by Skills Development Scotland and East Ayrshire's internal employability service. And members, you'll be familiar with the focus on locality provision through the Skills and Learning Hubs, SL33 in Kilmarnock, SL66 in Cumnock, and the new SL99 provision in Dunmellington. Members, if I can draw your attention to paragraph 35, and that is to enhance existing tracking arrangements and support early engagement with young people who may be at risk of not progressing to a positive school destination. From June 2026, secondary schools will provide data to the Employability Service and SDS 4 times per school session on the young people who are most at risk of not progressing to a positive destination on leaving school. Members, that will include any young person who may leave to go to another destination who the school consider might be at risk of not sustaining that destination. And that will provide the Employability Service with early intervention that whilst they may progress to an actual destination, that they can still be supported to make sure that they sustain that destination. And if they don't, then they will be supported to progress to a further destination. Members, school leaver attainment and literacy and numeracy. Improvement in attainment, particularly in literacy and numeracy, is a key priority within the National Improvement Framework for Education. Young people can achieve literacy and numeracy, completing a range of individual units and course awards. And Appendix 3 shows the range of units and courses that qualify as attainment in literacy and numeracy. Members, myself and Joe Kane, who's here this morning as Secondary Improvement Manager, and alongside Linda, have visited all of our secondary schools to speak to them about their own individual school leaver attainment and destinations. And as part of that, what I should mention, and it would be remiss of me not to mention, is that attendance presents a significant concern for schools. Schools are working on a whole load of creative and bespoke approaches to make sure that they're achieving literacy and numeracy awards for young people. However, attendance does remain a significant concern for a small minority of young people. And it's important to highlight as a small minority, because if you look at the figures for literacy and numeracy attainment, if you look at SEQF level 3 in paragraph 38, you'll see that 93% of our young people achieve literacy and numeracy qualifications at SEQF level 3. And that compares very favourably with the virtual comparator, and not too far off the national performance as well. Similarly, if you look at national SEQF level 4, you'll see that 88.64% of young people achieve literacy and numeracy at SEQF level 4. And again, that compares very favourably to the virtual comparator and almost in line with the national performance. Again, taking into context the population of our school leavers, 68% achieved SEQF level 5 literacy and numeracy, and again, very much higher than the virtual comparator. And at SEQF level 6, we're seeing 24%, and again, higher than the virtual comparator. So attainment of school leavers in paragraph 39 and 24-25 in literacy and numeracy at each SEQF level in East Ayrshire compares very favourably to the virtual comparator performance. And it's also positive to note that East Ayrshire performance at SEQFs level 3 and 4 is comparable to national figures. And members, just to frame that also, that given we were a Scottish Attainment Challenge local authority, that's a very positive performance in relation to comparison to national performance. Members, if I can take you to paragraph 41, and this focuses on school leaver attainment and qualifications broader than literacy and numeracy. And this looks at qualifications at level 3, 4, 5 and 6, and one or more qualification achieving at these levels. Members, if I can draw your attention to the tables in paragraph 42, what you'll see is that one or more qualification at SEQF level 3 on leaving school, East Ayrshire is 97.43, in comparison to the virtual comparator at 97.33 and national at 97.95, and again a positive performance there. 94.7 at SEQF level 4 in comparison to 94.35 of the virtual comparator and 95.57 nationally, and 83.5 at SEQF level 5 and 56.09 at SEQF level 6. So again, attainment in SEQF levels 3 and 4 are above the virtual comparator, whilst the change in the distribution of the school leaver cohort in 24-25 compared to recent years may have impacted overall school leaver attainment, particularly at SEQF level 6, and I mentioned that at the start of the paper, members. As described in paragraph 20, 24-25 had a lower percentage of best 6 school leavers in the previous 5 years. Young people leaving school in earlier stages are less likely to achieve with qualifications at higher SEQF levels than those leaving in S6. And to exemplify that, members, Table 8 shows attainment at SEQF level 6 for S6 school leavers. And this data shows that attainment in S6 in East Ayrshire compares very favourably to the virtual comparator and national performance across all 5 years shown in the table. So members, in summary, there are positive messages arising from the data, including the initial destinations of the 93.26% of young people who progress to an initial destination, and that's achieved through strong partnership working, and there's an ongoing focus on supporting young people into positive destinations where required. The ongoing tracking and engagement with young people who do not progress to a positive destination when leaving school to ensure they receive appropriate support to engage in training and education and employment, and attainment in literacy and numeracy, particularly at SEQF levels 3 and 4 being higher than the virtual comparator. And finally, in terms of positive messaging, attainment and qualifications at all SEQF levels, supporting young people to progress to positive destinations on leaving school. Members, there's clearly further areas of improvement, and some of these just to highlight the curriculum developments that are already underway in schools, including the introduction of foundation apprenticeships to provide pathways to employment and raise attainment, as well as encouraging young people to remain at school until S6, where this meets their needs. And additional steps being introduced to identify and support young people who are most at risk of not progressing to a positive post-school destination and improve initial positive destinations. Members, I should say, finally, we're proud of each and every young person and their achievements. We also wish to recognise the support and encouragement that young people receive, parents, carers, teachers and support staff and partners. Members, just to reference colleagues who are with us in terms of this paper, so we've got Joe Keynes, Secondary Performance Improvement Manager, and we've got Marjorie Harvey, Employability Manager, and Mags Watson joins us online from Economic Development, but we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Graham. I don't know, is it worth going to Marjorie next and to add on tell us a wee bit about the SL hubs that you're working with and how many young people you're working with? I think age 15 to 24, did I get that right? Thank you, Marjorie.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks through you, Chair. In response to the figures that were published in October, the figures for No One Left Behind and SDS have actively been working on the school leaver destinations follow-up during March and April, and the results have been significant. We are confident that the work that we are doing just now will reflect in the results that will be published in June following Scottish Government data quality checks. Some of the joint activities by our No One Left Behind team, which are based within the SL establishments and SDS, included 30 home visits were conducted to improve the engagement of the young people that didn't respond or reply to any contact and just disengaged in services. SDS and No One Left Behind tracking lists helped everyone focus on young people at risk of being in a negative destination. We started off with 65 young people in March that were unemployed, and after the interventions as of today, we're sitting at 28 today. And if we break them down into the 28, the categories that basically they're not engaging with any services, it is 18 are recorded as economically inactive. So that could mean that basically it's through ill health, or it could be through the young parents, but they cannot seek employment. So that was 18 out of the 28. 8 of them are recorded as ill health, so they cannot take part in any work activity, and 2 today are saying that they don't want any contact with any services with SDS or ourselves. So the No One Left Behind team set up a WhatsApp digital channel as part of a new digital offer, because we realised, how do we actually get these young people in? They're not going to come into drop-in services. They're not going to. They actually say, "Well, I'm not going back to school. I'm not going to go back to college." And it's what is next? How do we get to them? So actually, in the last month, we've just been actually creating different ways and looking at it. So actually having this in place has made us look at the employability figures in a different way and be able to react. So a digital channel was formed, and which gave the young people that easy, informal way to engage with the post-school offers from ourselves and out with external partners and communities. And it took the pressure off them attending appointments. So with the 30 home visits, we're able to say face-to-face, look, this is an offer, and what we'll do is we will sign you up to this WhatsApp channel. You don't need to be your face doesn't need to come on cameras to anything that's we're delivering, and it's actually getting the relationships built with our youth team, our youth worker, and 39 actively is engaging in this. The good thing about this channel, it's not like a chat. It is it's telling them what is there, like SALAS supports, what jobs are coming up, what modern apprentices are there, and you actually can tell what ones are actually engaging. But as I say, they don't chat through this channel, so it's a great way to actually see what the young people are interested in. But from that, it's actually we're going to grow that through the whole service for parents as well, because what we find is if the young people are probably saying that we were talking earlier, but them saying there's no anything out there, there's no any offers, no nobody's getting in touch with us. Whereas now, if we've got the parental side involved when on leaving school, we can actually say no, they can join up to it as well to actually see what is out there, so we can reach wider as well. So opportunities, as I say, were shared daily in this WhatsApp group, so young people are aware. Warm handovers between No One Left Behind and SDS staff mean that young people don't have to keep repeating their journey. So these have been taking place again, because again, it's that whole appointment. The young people don't want to go again to an appointment every 2 weeks and tell it again, because staff are changing across the board. School careers advisors and guidance staff have been also issued with a referral form to allow early intervention to all school leavers at risk of not gaining the positive destination. And this will allow us, because as we see daily, there's different people coming in through schools with offers of modern apprentices out with where possibly we don't know. So this will let us actually identify the young people at risk and highlight them, because obviously we are reporting on them on the up to their 26-year-old. So it's very more going to be structured, and basically who is the young people who you are worried about. And as I say, we're like the guidance after school, so hopefully we'll be able to monitor that more closely. We actually, No One Left Behind, and SDS coordinators comes in SL, and they both look at the both lists to make sure that the data is, we're getting the young people at the right time, at the right place as well. So that's weekly meetings are taking place as well. The joined up approach has really helped us to reduce this negative destination figure for this year, and this practice it's not just for just now, it's going to be embedded, and actually we've took learning from this that we really need to be more structured and take into account that staff do change across the board, and new providers come on board as well with sharp intervention programmes that we actually need to be aware of where these young people are going, so that we are able to pick them up if it's not sustainable. And hopefully that will give you a wee idea of what's happening.
Very good, thank you. I'd like to members, any questions or comments? Councillor McGregor.
Thanks very much, Chair. A really good report, a really important report as well. Very reassuring to hear about all the support, particularly there with regards to non-positive destinations. Just a wee question about initial positive destinations. Table 4, it's good to see that we're at or around the national average in the virtual comparators. My question was really about, and I know it's heavily reliant on census data, and it is a snapshot in time, which Graham mentioned, but we hear a lot about, positive destinations, particularly with regards to employment. Is there any further tracking or breakdown that's done? Because obviously I'd imagine that includes zero hours contracts, temporary positions, seasonal work, bank work. Do we know? Obviously that's got possibly repercussions for in work poverty and benefits. Do we know where these kids are going into employment when they initially leave, or is that something that's we're getting a picture, but maybe there could be a fuller picture? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Linda.
Thanks, Councillor McGregor, and through you, Chair. Yeah, it's clearly incredibly difficult to track around about, clearly for some of these young people, they've been out of school for a year, and obviously with employers. So ultimately, we do have a data hub around about where the young people are. It tends to be quite broad headings, but clearly with the links that we have with local intelligence around about, for example, labour market trends, but also our colleagues. So we still, even though we become a Directorate of Education and Skills, we still sustain those strategic links with David McDowell and his team. And I know Mags is online and might be best able to answer these sorts of questions. So ultimately, we do have high-level data. It's the detail of that is really difficult once a young person moves into employment, because their job might change within that time, or their hours might change, or the young person's circumstances might change. So we have as much as we can. I don't know if Marjorie wants to add on to it, but the high level data, absolutely, Councillor McGregor, we've got, but again, it's subject to huge fluctuation on an hourly and daily basis. But I'll hand over to Marjorie, who will have a wee bit more detail in that space.
Thanks, Linda, through you, Chair. Yeah, we had, as Linda mentioned, the data hub, that was the system that was recorded all the initial destinations, and all the information is collated on that. But we have recently this year has been moved, there's a new portal be devised with the SDS, which is called Participation the portal, and we just got training on that last week, where it is a much better system that you can actually drill down in how many like young carers. It's like right down every like stream. So we're really excited that that's going to be coming, that we've actually got access to that, that we're not relying on our partners like indicating like where all these young people are and where who needs our support. So this portal, as I say, it's really it's going to be good, much better than the data hub, and it's with the college. They actually feed in to it as well, so that will give us a picture of where they are, where did they start, and if they have dropped out, we can actually be able to get that information quicker and be able to react on it. But this is the first year that we'll really have that access to that information, and you're able to drill down a lot more than what we previously have done.
Thank you. It's a good question. It's a good point to make, that the seasonal, or maybe somebody in a building site through the summer, or doing gardening work through the summer, what happens to them when the summer finishes and the job finishes. And it's good to see that you're recognising that and you're tracking that. I'm going to Councillor Cogley next, then Councillor Sangster, Councillor Todd.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the report, which covers a huge range of different areas and issues. And I think, like my colleagues, the cohort that I'm more concerned about is the S4 and the S5 leavers. And just to put this into a national and international context, we know we're not performing well internationally if we compare ourselves with our European counterparts. We know our S4 and S5 leaver figures, and onward destinations we know are poor. So it's wonderful to hear about the great work that Marjorie and her team are doing, because I always find that hugely, hugely uplifting. And a number of us here had the benefit of attending the early intervention seminar last week, and clearly a huge part of the resources that we potentially have available to us could be focused into the FAs, the foundation apprenticeships, which would, I think, really make a big contribution towards alleviating some of these problems that we know we have with the S4 and the S5 leavers. And to me, that would be a sort of really obvious place for us to be putting that funding. So that's just a nudge from me on that front for any sort of value that could be attached to it. And I look forward to working with you, Marjorie, at the SL, whatever we're going to call it, in Galston going forward with the S4 and S5 leavers in particular from Loudon Academy. So thank you very much for your words on that.
Thank you, Councillor Cogley. Councillor Sangster.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've actually got a few questions, if you would indulge me. Will I just ask one at a time?
I go with all the questions. I'm sure the people in the room will write down the questions and answer each in turn.
Perfect. So my first question is round about paragraph 4. Just around about the kind of the use of the virtual comparator. So how does the use of the virtual comparator, which includes obviously ASN as a key characteristic, how does that help schools and us as a council to identify kind of attainment gaps and target people with ASN? I was looking particularly for maybe some examples of how this data's kind of led to kind of specific interventions. My second question is around page 29, paragraph 29. Obviously looking at this table 4, the initial positive destination rate for school leavers is lower than previous years, and it's also below the national average. So I'm just wondering, what do we think, what factors have kind of contributed obviously to this decline, and what kind of targeted actions are we taking to kind of address that? And my final question is just round about kind of ASN. You know, I'm just wondering what steps have been taken to ensure kind of continuous improvement and outcomes for ESA, for young people with ASN, I mean, what proportion of young people with ESN do we have that are progressing to initial positive destinations? How are the kind of partnership activities through these employability hubs and the no one left behind approach? How are they supporting these young people in particular? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. Important questions, and the ESN is getting bigger. The numbers of ESNs getting larger and larger every year, it seems, as we get better at identifying it. I don't know who wants to take which question. Right, Graham, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'll take the first question, then pass to Linda for the following question. So, in terms of ESN and targeting groups around about the virtual comparator, what the data allows us to do is to learn from trends and patterns through the data over time. So, as well as insight allowing us to access overall local authority and school figures, it allows us also to access individual pupil level data. And at that pupil level data, what it allows us to do is to intervene where a young person perhaps hasn't achieved literacy or numeracy or any other qualification for that matter, to make sure that by the time they leave school, then they're able to be supported. But bigger than that, what that allows us to do is to identify any trends and patterns, as I mentioned, over a period of time to identify any vulnerable groups within a cohort in a school or within a cohort within a local authority. So if, for example, we are able to identify within that data set that comes to us each year that ASN groups are a particularly vulnerable group in terms of attaining literacy or numeracy, it allows schools and local authority to put in interventions to make sure that young people can capture that at the earliest possible opportunity. So it might be the case that we don't wait until S4, S5 and S6 to achieve these qualifications, that we try and do that as early as possible, perhaps in S3, to make sure that young people are actually achieving that. So hopefully that's an example that provides a context around about how the data is used and how that data is used intelligently to make sure that we're meeting the needs of young people. There's lots more work goes on around about that, but just in terms of the context within this forum, that's an example of how we use that data.
I'll come in on the second question through you, Chair, that Councillor Sangster's asked in respect of the decrease, and it is a decrease, Councillor Sangster, you are correct, in respect of the positive destinations figure, and clearly it's one that I'm very happy to answer. So ultimately, Councillor Cogley, the issues around about the young people leaving school at those younger ages are definitely playing a part in this, around about the ability and the qualifications to actually move into a positive destination. So we're seeing an impact of that. I know that's been a running theme in terms of more young people leaving school at S4 and S5. Clearly, when they move to college or employment, that can also be something that they enjoy or they don't enjoy, and they can move out of that. And clearly the tracking of these young people is incredibly difficult. What I have following, obviously, the snapshot, given our own monitoring processes, I met with all colleagues, and we've actually just had our follow-up data uplifted, and that's the really important one. So we've got the initial snapshot, and clearly it's for local authorities to then act upon that. So clearly, if you didn't act upon that, there's potential for that figure to further degrade. We suspect at this point in time, and please not for quotation, but ultimately we expect that figure is now 96% through the actions that Marjorie described in the update. And normally that's a figure that can be quite ropey, for want of a much more technical phrase, because it's so subject to human behaviour and what young people enjoy and what they perhaps don't enjoy. So we've obviously seen the fact clearly through the paper on the leaver demographic, more and more young people leaving at S4 and S5. Clearly, we've acted on the intelligence provided to us following the snapshot and the systems we have, and we've actually acted to implement more and more systems, and that which Marjorie spoke to very, very clearly around about even a digital solution to try and capture young people. And the question is, what is it you're actually doing right now? Is it the right thing? And if it's not, we need you back in. So the bottom line is here that in other authorities, they might not have the existence of the hubs like SL33, 66, and I think Councillor Cogley referred to the Early Intervention and Prevention Summit that we held last Friday in Cumnock, and we clearly heard from DWP about the creation of youth hubs to do that very job. Well, in East Ayrshire, we've actually already got them. So the beauty is we're a good step ahead of the curve. We strongly suspect we've put about 2.5% onto that particular figure. the aspiration is always 100%. There's no two ways about that. But given clearly some young people are not able to enter further positive destinations in that space, but it's what we'll always aspire to. So ultimately, we think that the foundation apprenticeship work will pay significant dividend, because if a young person's got a route from foundation apprenticeship into modern apprenticeship and into potentially graduate apprenticeship, the more earn as you learn model, then we believe that by the young people staying with us, and that's corporate us rather than just education us as a council, through both the Jobs and Training Fund but also through enhanced curriculum. So every one of our secondary schools is now a preparatory space around about implementation of the foundation apprenticeship, or is actually implementing from August this year. And Martin Robertson at Doon will oversee all of that, given the success of the foundation apprenticeship up at Doon. And obviously, members, as you know, you were very gracious in the agreements around about the Ayrshire Growth Deal and the core monies in respect of the core and employability, which will see us fund and open the further wing. So we clearly have the administrative wing of SL99 is already open, but clearly the next move is to open the full trades and industry wing at SL99, as well as some further routes we're exploring in the aeronautical sector down clearly with the Ayrshire Growth Deal aspirations. So ultimately, the result in that is clearly not what we wanted at snapshot, but clearly the job at hand is to take action, and the action's been taken. I need to commend the work of Joe, Marjorie and others in the room and beyond around about capturing those young people. So it's not a case of, oh, that's what the snapshot told us, so we'll wait and see what happens in the next bit. We've really robustly got around about these young people, and hopefully they feel really cosseted as a part of that in terms of being nurtured and looked after into the next space. And we highly suspect that figure just now sits at around about 96%. That'll be published in June, and I'm more than happy to bring that figure back for further scrutiny, Councillor Sangster, in terms of being answerable to the committee.
Thank you very much, Linda. Did that answer all three questions? Are you?
Yeah, that's one question.
Right, let you come back in, Linda.
So Councillor Sangster asked around about the destinations of ASN young people. So we've got Insight Live at the moment. So Graham's worked through that and can give you the statistics in that regard, Councillor Sangster. So through you, Chair.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Chair. So the initial positive destinations of young people who are recorded as having additional support needs was 88% in 24-25. In comparison, it's been fairly similar the previous year. So 88%, Councillor Sangster, is the positive destinations for children or young people recorded as having ASN.
Thanks, Councillor Todd. Next.
Thank you very much, Convener. Thank you. A couple of points for me. That was a great discussion we had last week. Cumnock really enjoyed it. I've been advocating for years about the Austrian model in terms of foundations and vocational routes. Met that through scouting, believe it or not. Our head teacher from Oberndorf Secondary in Austria. And he was explaining how their model works, and it works really well with that connection with local industry. And we had a good discussion about that. The second one with the SL model, what a brilliant model that is. And as we heard for the DWP last week, we are streets ahead of anybody else in terms of that model, and it's a brilliant model. I know, personally know some brilliant young folk with ASN who have had positive destinations. And it's not just about the positive destination, which is the most important thing about it. It's the journey to that positive destination through SL, because, and I'm going to get a red face, but these guys here are absolutely brilliant, because they're not just pathfinders, they become friends of all these wonderful folk. And it's a nurturing thing. It's not just about that journey. And it's great. So I'm really pleased to hear about SL99, which brings me to this point. I was always under the impression for years with the zone that we invested heavily in the zone through East Ayrshire through all these years for doing the things that SL99 is going to be doing. So I'm just wondering, is there a cross Is there dilution? Is there a meeting of two avenues of water here? And what's going to be the model for the future for that area? Thank you.
Councillor Todd, it's a really, really fair question. We see it absolutely as a partnership. So it's very much about non-duplication, because clearly there's been monies awarded from this council in respect of the Fairer Futures partnership, but there's also monies, because obviously we're at a very early stage around about the SL99 model. So ultimately the new campus, as members will hear next week at briefing, is ahead in terms of planning and moving out to further consultation with the community. And we already know there's already a fantastic community model via the Domellington Community Centre and what's offered there. So the last thing that we want to do as an employability and education and skills service is to go in and offer something that's duplicate. So the offer at SL99 at this point in terms of draft is very much around about the trades element. We've also had some fantastic initial discussions with colleagues in the wind energy sector around about, again, having the appropriate training materials given the size of the premises that we're about to move into. There's actually scope where we can take a wind turbine, not the full size, but the top of it and we look at the number of jobs that might be created there. And there's also a hospitality opportunity in there. So we will work in absolute partnership with our friends and partners at both the Domellington Community Centre and in the zone. And indeed, we actually expect to be able to enhance what they offer. So it's that piece around about not going in and, oh, we're the brand new shiny new thing, and to the demise of what's already. These guys that are already there know the community best right now. We don't purport to go in and know everything about that really rich community in the Doon Valley, but what we know is for young people leaving Doon, that travel to college can be a real issue for them. So when we're talking about the zone and the employability and the community stuff, what we think we're doing is enhancing it completely by offering a trades and vocational offer in the town, both for young people and adults alike. So when we do get SL99 off the ground per se, that will very much be with all safeguarding taken into account. I know that's something very close to members' hearts. When we get SL99 off the ground, and it will be soon, it will be very much around about that. What can we do to enhance the skills of the local community? It will not just be around about the young people coming out of school, and also other people who might have lost jobs that want to retrain, because we very much know some of the biggest employment in the Doon Valley is now in that wind energy industry, but also in the care sector. So we're very alive to all of that. So we very much hope that the offer will be working with our colleagues at both the zone and indeed the community centre, because they're just ultimately fantastic. So it's not a duplicated offer. It will be a very much partnership offer, and also an enhanced what can we do for them in that particular space, but also to ensure that Fairer Futures partnership money people feel is been well spent in that third sector area. So really looking forward to that work as we move forward. I don't know if Marjorie wants to say anything in addition. I think that would cover it.
Just to say that there is ongoing meetings taking place just actually last week with the zone. So they've actually been in and to utilise our parental support, but also looking at what they can deliver, because they were really the childcare and they do the qualification, and we were saying, well, that would actually bring something to the 99. So it's basically what can they do, what can we do, and it's working together. So that it's a good partnership. We've got good links there with the staff. It's good.
Very good. That's a good question. Thank you very much, and thanks for the answers. Any other comments, questions? I've one if no one else is wanting back in. I was looking at paragraph 22 and labour market information. It's a fairly new thing, last 2-3 years, I think, that the secondary schools are actively looking at labour market information and trying to point pupils in the right direction as far as qualifications and courses and their future, try to get thinking earlier about what their future holds. Can you tell us a wee bit about this, the labour market information? Where do you get that information? Is that refreshed every year and you feed that to every secondary school now?
So the formal publication is via SDS, but we get an awful lot of our LMI actually on a fairly informal basis as well. So we get labour market intelligence on a a local basis, so East Ayrshire figures, but we also get national trends as well through SDS per se. But we also get an incredible amount through our colleagues across in economic development. You know, we're hearing things about, you know, McGee's Bakery is about to expand, and a lot of that is just, you know, current news and keeping. We're very alive to the fact that, you know, clearly Council graciously granted us to become that Directorate of Education and Skills, but we clearly need that ongoing line across to economic development, but also our colleagues in, you know, planning, house building, and all corporate areas of the Council. So you have the formal publication of labour market trends and information, but we also have that link across into the Ayrshire Growth Deal via the Ayrshire Skills Group and the Ayrshire Skills Strategic Group, and also the college. So we won't be able to offer all of the training given some of the equipment, etc., that's needed, and we move that to our, you know, very able and capable partners in the college in that space, Councillor Mabin. But we've been working with labour market intelligence for quite some time now, and I know Jo and I, as you know, previous head teachers out in the field, that's something that we always use to try and influence what we're offering the young people. And obviously right now we've got hundreds of young people going through qualifications like performing engineering operations. So what might have previously been, you know, more a traditional technically based qualifications, now moving into that space around, you know, performing engineering qualifications. And as you'll see from the list in the paper that Graham presented, you know, really diverse range, criminology, introduction to law through the Open University at level 7 as prep for university for these young people. So it's a lot of it's about not just seeing what the trends are telling us, but how do you bolt that into a school really from first year, to be honest, and into primary, and begin to get the young people well versed in what's available to them, because it has changed significantly, and clearly with the advent of AI, that will continue.
Thank you, Linda. That's really interesting, especially for older guys like myself and Councillor Todd. It's, I mean, we probably get memories of the subjects was woodwork, metalwork, or if you were a wee bit cleverer, you did techie drawing. It's interesting how the curriculum's evolved, and you're targeting engineering, and you're getting much more complex courses and opportunities. Thank you, Linda. Okay, I think we've kind of wrapped that up in the agenda. If we go back to page 24, which is paragraph 2, there's 7 recommendations there. Elected members, I'm not going to read them all out. You've probably read them already. I'll be happy with those recommendations, paragraph 2. Thank you, members. We'll close that item in the agenda. We're moving on to item 6 in the agenda. Page 42 to 83, we're going statutory performance indicators and local government benchmarking framework. There's a title for a report. We're going to Ian Tuff, Head of Corporate Support.
Thanks, Chair. Longest title ever. Thanks. Purpose of the report really is to present 2 areas. That's to provide an update on our statutory performance indicators. As you mentioned, that's our local suite of indicators that we are required by statute to have in place. And then we provide an update on the local government benchmarking framework, which is the comparative set of indicators compared to all other councils as well. The report covers a lot of ground, Chair. I'm not proposing to go through the detail of individual indicators, but I will just highlight some areas. So the first part to highlight is in respect of the statutory performance indicators. So paragraph 11, members will note that this is for completeness. We're bringing to Governance and Scrutiny Committee today those indicators that were not included the last time we reported this suite of indicators to members, which was back in September as part of the joint engagement event with the Community Planning Partnership Board. So there were 7 indicators that were unavailable at that time. So for completeness, as I said, we're presenting these for members' information, and you'll see them from paragraphs 12 through to 43, and they cover areas including winter maintenance, planning applications, destinations of school leavers. Clearly had that conversation already with Linda's report. Educational attainment, also a consistent item from the previous agenda item. Exclusion rates, business support, employability. Thereafter, Chair, from paragraph 45, this is where we bring in the LGBF, or the Local Government Benchmarking Framework Indicators. As I mentioned, these are indicators that are compared between local authorities and are then ranked across various measures of performance. So in respect of those indicators at paragraph 50, Chair, you'll notice that 94 out of 109 LGBF indicators are available for the 2024-25 reporting period. For our own context, then, East Ayrshire has just over 58% of performance indicators for which the data is available, appearing in the top 2 quartiles. So nearly 60% of our indicators are performing well and in the top 2 quartiles. So that's a positive outcome for us. At paragraph 52, we note that 16 of those indicators appeared in the first quartile in 2024-25. That's compared to 20 in the previous year. And 6 of those indicators are ranked in the top 5 in Scotland, and we've noted them in bullet points at paragraph 52. At paragraph 53, we reference Appendix 2 to the report, which includes all of the detail. Far too much for me to go through here, but I know it will be of interest to elected members. And that also includes comparators, not just with other councils, but also with previous years and our baseline year for indicators from 2010-11. Paragraph 54, Chair, we record here, we see an improving, maintaining performance in just over 55% of LGBF indicators between 23 and 24 and 24 and 25. So that year-on-year improvement, again, is very positive for us. But if you take that trend information back to the baseline of 2010-11, then almost 64% of our indicators are showing an improving longer-term trend. So again, very positive. Lastly, Chair, I'll just highlight that Appendix 3 to the report provides a bit more of the mitigations and the improvement actions that services have in respect of those indicators that are least, the ones that are at the bottom quartile for 24-25. So that's the indicators that are performing least well. And as I said, along with those indicators, there is a commentary and a summary of the actions that are being taken by service and mitigation. With those comments, Chair, happy to take any questions along with my colleague James Campbell, who leads on much of this work for us as well. I'm conscious that not all services are represented today, though, in chambers, but if we can't answer the questions, and we will endeavour to get any detail to elected members that may be missing from questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ian. It's a very detailed report. You're covering 9 service groupings and there's 109 indicators altogether, so there's plenty here for us to look at. Elected members, have we any comments or questions for Ian? Councillor Sangster.
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Chair. Just on page 49, paragraph kind of 36, sorry. I'm just looking at this table, and this is a kind of red flag for me. I'm a wee bit concerned about the exclusion rates. I'm assuming special is referring to ASN. Would I be correct? It might be that we maybe need to update your language in terms of that, Ian. It's not something that's offensive to me, but it's a bit outdated. But I'm just looking at the kind of, this 51% increase in exclusion rates. I'm a bit concerned about that. So I would have thought that the ASN schools would have kind of behaviour support and inclusion strategies. So what kind of targeted interventions are we implementing to try and reduce these exclusion rates? It would be good, and maybe this will be something for off table, to see the kind of actual, the data on this specific data, which schools, etc. But I know that's not something that probably we should be be speaking about in public. And just kind of going on to Appendix 2, page 58, just on the sections 25 to 28, just kind of carrying on from that. I'm just wondering how the school attendance rate for looked after children and those with ASN compare to the general population, and what kind of strategies we have in place to address these kind of disparities. I mean, what are we actually doing to try and reduce the exclusion rates for these groups? Thank you.
Ian, or do you want education as well?
Chair, I think Linda will come in on the detail. Perhaps just the first point, Councillor Sangster, yes, the language, I think we need to update that, and I'll commit to doing that. I think Linda's got the detail on the rest of the question. Thanks.
Through you, Chair, and Councillor Sangster, thank you again for your question. You're very right to raise these issues here. So in totality, the exclusions in East Ayrshire from 23-24 were 364 in total, and they moved to 377. So there's actually a real-time increase of 13 exclusions across the year, and clearly that, again, we don't want to see that increase, because we know that when a young person's not in school and through exclusion, then they're not learning, they're not engaging, and we're not around them. But the way that this is reported from a governmental basis is one that causes me great concern, and I know it's one that Ian and I and Graham have had discussions on in the past. The exclusion rates are actually done per 1,000 pupils. So when you actually look at the numbers concerned in the ASL sector, Councillor Sangster, it looks horrendous in terms of concentration. So when you have less pupils in the sector, any one exclusion is going to have a significant effect. So if it's okay, I'm actually just going to jump in to be able to give you, can't identify schools, because it could effectively lead to identification of the young person, which is clearly inappropriate. But to give you an idea of what the actual numbers were, and I'm not saying they're in any way acceptable, so please don't take this as permissive. But in the ASN sector in 23-24, there were 5 incidents of exclusion in that entire sector in a year. It moved to 8 in 24-25, so there's 3 more pupils involved in being excluded. So to give you a number that's probably a bit more relative in terms of the understanding of the measure. So when you look at it in terms of the report, because of the way the Scottish Government lift the figures in terms of per 1,000, it looks really concentrated, whereas actually in real terms, going back to 2021, we're in COVID year. So obviously there was no exclusions in the ASL sector that year at all. There was 1 in 21-22, so 1 pupil excluded. 1 in 22-23. This is again only in the ASL sector, and this doesn't only include, our ASL schools, the Willowbank, Hillside, and Park. It's also the ASL SLCs, so communication centres, etc. So by way, and I hope it's by way of reassurance, but while the SPI LGBF figures might look really, really worrying, in real terms, that's actually the number of pupils. So an increase from 5 to 8 saw that resultant effect in terms of the concentration per 1,000. So I hope that's helpful in that regard, Councillor Sangster, because it does on paper look really bad. It's obviously 3 more young people that I would prefer not to have been excluded, but when we track back on some of those reasons, they can be around about assaults on staff, etc., where schools feel that that's the option that they need to take in order to give young people and the staff a chance to heal and repair and restore in advance of implementation potentially of further risk assessments, or indeed, highly importantly, the plan around the young person. So that's the real terms number is 8 in that particular academic year. I'm not sure if Mr McGinn wants to go into the next part for you now, if that's okay, around about ASN and looked after young people.
Yeah, thanks, Linda, and through you, Chair. Councillor Sangster, you asked about looked after. The way we look at the data is around about care experience in its widest sense, rather than just looked after. So this could include previously looked after as well. So in the primary sector, school attendance in 24-25 for care experienced young people, it was 88.76%, whereas young people who were not care experienced was 91.96%. In the secondary sector, care experienced was 74.65 and not care experienced was 86.17. And in special or ASN sector, care experienced was 84.54 and not care experienced was 88.60. I suppose one thing to mention in there is that the numbers are quite significant because there are fewer young people in the care experienced group, it means that any individual or groups of individuals would have a greater impact on the figures. So I suppose it's important to recognise that context too.
Thank you, Linda and Graham. Is that okay, Councillor Sangster?
Yeah, it's good to just get clarification on numbers. Numbers is not my strong point, so it's good to get clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ian, I see that you've looked at 109 indicators in paragraph 56. There's 15 indicators that you haven't looked at this year, you don't have information for, and that was where Councillor Sangster's asked the question. I suppose that you come back to these, you would target these indicators next year. Ian?
Thanks, Chair. It tends to be that the information is not available rather than us not consciously looking at them. It's the data is not available for whatever reason. Some of those measures are annually collected, and there is a bit of a time lag in them actually being reported. So, but when it is available, we will commit to reporting back to Governance and Scrutiny at the next opportunity. Thanks, Chair.
Right, thank you. And it's quite good that we, in the appendix, you're using the red, amber, green system. The RAG system makes it quite simple for us to target questions and what we're seeing as red areas. Councillor Cogley, you've spotted one or two things.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to focus on page 59 and also on page 62. On page 59, numbers 37 and 38, the sickness absence, those figures have increased hugely, and I know, Amanda, that's extremely frustrating, particularly bearing in mind the work that you and your team are doing at the moment. So if you'd just like to comment on that, and then to move on to page 62, and it's item 82, average number of days to complete non-emergency repairs, and that's gone up by 172%. So if we could have some commentary on those two items, please.
Through you, Chair. So in relation to the sickness absence, I think that we'll have rehearsed as well. What I would say is, yes, it is a significant increase. It's from 2010-11, the increase. So it's a significant number of years ago. And at that point, and I had mentioned in the GNS session before, there was an error in how it was being calculated, which meant that, so whilst the sickness absence of days lost has increased, the calculation changed in the league table as well. The other bit about the league table, where it's very disappointing where we are, and obviously we are working very hard to try and improve these figures, is that we are not comparing like for like council on council. Some councils are calculating it differently, but also no council is set up the same. So we pride ourselves in the number of in-house services, for example, care at home, etc., waste. A lot of councils do not have those areas in-house. They're outsourced to ALIOs, etc. So when you are comparing, it's not an exact like for like. We do find that some councils also don't record for a half-day absence, and other people have got different cut-offs. So there is a wee bit of it, no like for like, but that doesn't take away for the figures are not where we want them to be. And as you know, we're reviewing the full policy, we're looking at all the processes, and we're trying to put in much more consistency. The compliance rates have improved with the support and attendance team in there. Unfortunately, overall absence rates haven't reduced yet, but in August we will be taking a paper back to Cabinet that gives the full analysis of that and the analysis of the benchmarking that we've done, both the public sector and the private sector, and also the policy review. And hopefully that the steps that we're taking are positive steps and they start to grow and get a more positive picture. But we keep trying.
Thank you, Amanda, for that. And the number 82.
Have we someone from housing does repairs? Comment now?
I don't think so, Chair, but just going on what's contained in that and the explanation for the very significant increase from the baseline year, then clearly you also notice that they were ranked in quartile. They were actually the top performing for that figure back in 2010. I think it was 13, 14. And so that large percentage increase, whilst that's clearly not something we want to see, moved us from quartile 1 to quartile 2. So it was a large percentage increase, but actually it's still a relatively good performing indicator for us. Without anyone from Housing and Communities here to give the context behind that, they'll perhaps commit to coming back to Councillor Cogley and the rest of the committee with any context around that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this report? No, everyone happy? Okay, we'll go back to recommendations, which is page 42, paragraph 2. And noting change in trading standards and recommend it was. Ian, can you tell us what's this change in trading standards?
So the reason for the change is set out within the report. We're bringing it to G&S today, really just for completeness again, for noting that change in our statutory performance indicators had already been approved by Council last September when it was last reported. So the slight change there is, and I think I can find the reference to it, but there is a specific comment around the reason for that in the report as well, Chair. So as I said, it's for G&S members to note, but it had been approved by full Council last September.
Thank you very much. I'll let the members, you're happy with your recommendations and noting the change to trading standards. Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item in the agenda, which is item 7. Got the annual review of local code of corporate governance, and we're back to Ian Tough again. Ian.
Thanks again, Chair. So this is the annual review of our local code of corporate governance. It comes to Governance and Scrutiny Committee at this time of year because part of the report includes the annual governance statement that then is contained within our annual accounts. So there are 3 main parts to the report. There's a look back and a progress update on the improvement actions that Governance and Scrutiny Committee approved at this time last year. So we provide a position statement against them. We present the annual governance statement for approval at Appendix 2, and we also set out at Appendix 3 proposed improvement action plan for 26-27. Again, taking those in turn, Chair, Appendix 1 to the report details those actions that members asked us to focus on over the last year. At paragraph 14 in the report, you'll notice that we just summarised that by saying that good progress is made in implementing those improvement actions. All are either described as good progress or fully achieved. And then for the remainder of that part of the report, we describe some of those key issues that we've worked on over the last year. At paragraph 29, you'll notice, and it's been mentioned a couple of times today already, Chair, and it's a reflection back on the work we've done around Early Intervention and Prevention Fund and the event that members and officers attended along with some external partners, Joseph Rowntree Foundation and DWP, and that's mentioned at paragraph 29, Chair. There'll be a report coming back to full Council on all of the product from that session over the next couple of weeks. We also touch on the best value agenda. At the last meeting of the Governance and Scrutiny Committee, you'll recall, Chair, having a report from Audit Scotland on the thematic work that they have done recently around asset management, a really positive report for us with no recommendations contained in that. We make reference to that at paragraph 34. We also make reference at paragraph 52, the work that we've had recently endorsed by full Council around demographic change and population change in our communities. And again, we've taken the opportunity in this report to include reference there as well. That takes us on then, Chair, if you don't mind, just to the next part of the report, which is the annual governance statement of assurance that sets out for the purposes of inclusion in our accounts and includes the opinion from the Chief Auditor as well. And that follows the guidance that's been issued by SIPFA and Solace. And then lastly, Chair, is the Appendix 3 to the report which we're asking for approval of today. And this sets out those improvement actions we'll take forward over the coming year. For just members' information, I'll highlight a couple of those new measures that we're adding in there. A lot of them are repetitive, and you will see that they are continuations from previous years. But for 26-27, we're committed to looking again at our wider strategic framework, so the strategic plan, which will conclude in 2027, in accordance with the term of the council. So when elected members are for election in 2027, we will be bringing forward a new 5-year strategic plan to the new council, and we'll be starting work on that over 26-27. We include at number 12 in Appendix 3 the implementation of the Council's new performance management system, which for my own service is a priority for us. We'll mention again the population demographic change at number 14. And then lastly, Chair, at improvement action number 17 in Appendix 3, we touch on the audit and inspection activity that we expect to have over the coming year. For the council, there'll be a significant year for this work in 26-27. The council will probably be, well, we expect and we know it will be in that year for a full best value audit of the council, which is the Controller of Audit report. And that's, again, a significant milestone for the full council. Thanks, Chair. With those comments, happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. It's a good report, plenty of detail in there. I'd like to members with any questions or comments, please. No questions, no comments. You're going to get off light with this. Well done, Ian.
I'll take it, Chair. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, if there's no questions or comments, we're back to page 84, please. And it's paragraph 4. You'll see there's first 2 are for noting, there's 2 of them are for approval. So we're approving the content of the proposed annual governance statement. We're approving the proposed corporate governance action plan. Elected members will be happy with that, with noting and approving what they're asking. Thank you very much. How's the time? It's nearly 12 o'clock. With 3 items left on the agenda. Are we happy to just keep going, or do you want a break? Keep going? Right, we'll keep going. Thank you. We're now on to item 8 in the agenda, which is update on National Planning Improvement Framework Improvement Plan. We're going to Pamela Clifford for this one.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the opportunity to come along this morning to report on Year 2 of our National Planning Improvement Framework Plan, which we presented to this committee largely a year ago on that. In terms of the National Planning Improvement Framework Improvement Plan, we provided a summary graph in the report, and the full report is submitted as an appendix, as Appendix 1. The full report has been endorsed by the National Planning Improvement Champion, but also shared with the Minister for Public Finance, who has responsibility for planning within the Scottish Government. Pleased to advise that we're making good progress in terms of the 19 actions which were addressed in the improvement plan, with the majority of these actions being progressed or have been completed. The 3 actions that have been completed is we now have an up-to-date scheme of delegation, which is good. We have looked at the planning application process to refine and simplify that, as well as we've also reviewed the pre-application service on that, and that went to our planning committee. Good progress is also being made on the other actions, such as the review of the enforcement function, which is probably near completion. Looking at specialist skills review, a workforce strategy, elected member training, which is being taken forward by Scottish Government, but also we very much put a lot of emphasis on making sure that our members are well trained, looking at corporate management team workshops, engagement HQ, as well as local place plans and community action plans. 2 actions have not been started. This is in regard to the review of customer feedback process, as well as meeting agents of householder and local development. We're intending to get those addressed in year 3, and they're very much connected to the work that the National Planning Improvement Team in the Improvement Service is taking forward. We've also added an additional improvement action, which is to hold further developer roundtable events, and this is based on the success that we've seen from the one that we held regarding housing, but having ones looking again at housing as the next stage, as well as depopulation and investment in the town centre, and this will help to feed into our LDP 3, but also in terms of other initiatives that are being taken forward through the council, such as the town centre master plan. We've also continued working with our peer review, which is Renfrewshire Council, and we held a meeting in December of last year, and that's a good opportunity to share good practice, but also to discuss the actions that are being taken forward. So I think we're just about on this morning. The recommendation to the committee is to note the content and the progress being made, but also we will be back in April 2027 to give an update on the improvement plan in terms of year 3. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Pamela. Any questions or comments, elected members? Councillor Sangster first, and then Councillor Cogley.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Thank you very much, Pamela. I'm just wondering, how's the engagement with the communities on the local place plans going? Do you have any kind of updates? I'm just conscious. I want to ensure that the community voices are heard and acted upon, you know, in terms of these local place plans. So how is that going, Pamela?
Yeah, that is being taken forward, and there has been good progress. It's largely been taken forward by Ayrshire 360, and I believe that there will be an elected member briefing taking place in the next few months on that, just to update members of where we are, and also to provide maybe a celebration, because there has been a lot of input from communities into these local place plans.
Councillor Cogley.
Thank you, and Pamela, thank you very much for the report. And it's good to see the various the raft of actions, 19 actions that are being implemented. And we're in year 2. Year 2 out of how many years is my first question. And then action 7, elected member training. Is that focused on the elected members who are part of the LDP 3 and the planning committees, or is that aimed at all elected members? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cogley. It's year 2 out of year 3. Then it used to be that we did a planning performance framework, which was every year, but that caused a lot of a lot of resource went into that. So it was agreed at Scottish Government level that we would do it every 3 years. So it is the 2nd year, and then the 3rd year will be the update, and then we will review of how we take that forward. In terms of your second point, in terms of the elected member training on that. So that's targeted at all elected members on that. So not only the planning committee, but also the local development plan. And also we now have a very successful Be Inspired programme, which we are bringing a lot of people from outside to come and speak to both officers and sort of elected members on that. Certainly in terms of the flavour of the Scottish Government are progressing as sort of a mandatory training, which probably will come into being after the 2027 elections, whereby it's largely based on what is done in licensing, where there's a test in terms of if you're to sit on the planning committee as well as maybe council in terms of determining planning applications. So certainly heads of planning are inputting into that piece of work, but I think it's important that we do have a good programme of training for elected members.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, elected members, for those questions, and Pamela for the answers. No one else? Okay, we'll close that one then. That's this improvement update on National Planning Improvement Framework Improvement Plan. That's no easy to say as a title of a report. It's on page 113. The 2 recommendations are for noting in paragraph 2. Happy with that, elected members? Thank you. Item 9 on the agenda, we are at the internal audit 25-26 annual report and annual internal audit opinion, and that's from Paul Davis, interim chief auditor.
Good, Chair. The purpose of the report is to evidence conformance with the global internal audit standards in the UK public sector by providing an annual report against the 25-26 internal audit plan, and based on that work, an annual internal audit opinion of ongoing reasonable assurance, which will inform the Council's annual governance statement of assurance. I'll take the report as read and just pick out some of the key points. Paragraphs 3 to 11 set out the background in terms of our professional standards and the Council's assurance framework. Paragraphs 12 and 13 concern the annual opinion, resourcing and sufficiency of work. I'll cover paragraph 13 first, and one of the key updates from this report for committee today is that on the 18th of March, the IJB endorsed the appointment of the Chief Auditor into the role of the Interim Chief Finance Officer, Section 95 Officer. As anticipated, this secondment will be for a duration of 12 months, and during this period, the Chief Auditor post will be covered by me. The majority of this report, including the annual opinion, Appendix 5, was completed by the Chief Auditor prior to the commencement of the secondment, with updates to assignment outcomes at Appendices 3A, 3B and 4 provided by me after this date. Paragraph 12 notes that we confirm sufficient work has been carried out to inform the 25-26 annual internal audit opinion. Our resources are subject to ongoing scrutiny by the Chief Auditor, the leadership team and committee within the cycle of scheduled reporting. We've previously noted challenges in the recruitment of qualified and experienced auditors, with mitigation measures put in place, including the membership of National Internal Audit Resourcing Group, identifying solutions. We did fill the remaining senior auditor vacancy towards the end of 2025, which is good news. Nevertheless, a small team is always subject to risk. And just this week, we have advertised for a temporary senior auditor post to provide cover for the team during the duration of Hayley's secondment. Paragraph 14 notes that I continue to confirm the organisational independence of internal audit activity and that there are no inappropriate resource or scope limitations on our work. Paragraphs 15 to 23 are established sections of our annual report covering our reporting arrangements, external assessment, best value and following the public pound. Paragraphs 24 to 26 cover our outputs and annual opinion for 25-26. Our work in the year has resulted in outputs from limited to sound assurance, as noted in Appendices 3A to 3B, with a summary graph included at Appendix 5. The overwhelming majority, 83% of our assurance outputs were at least reasonable assurance. Paragraph 25 relates to our follow-ups, and we continue to work alongside services to both agree and then support the application of our recommendations. Action-based services continues to demonstrate a high performance rate with 100% implementation scores achieved in 9 of the 10 areas completed to date. And paragraph 26 notes our overall opinion based on the work carried out is that reasonable assurance can continue to be placed upon the adequacy and effectiveness of the Council's framework of governance, risk management and control in the year to the 31st of March 2026, despite an increasingly challenging environment. Appendix 2 on page 141 covers the data analytics work we've carried out in the year. Appendices 3A to 3B from page 145 provide more detail on each of our assignments, and Appendix 4 provides the detail on our follow-up assignments. Appendix 5 on page 156 provides our full opinion for the year. Our recommendations for noting are at paragraph 2, but I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you very much, Paul. I would say best of luck to Ailey. We've lost our chief auditor for a year. She's moved on to the role at the IJIB. I hope she does well. And well done yourself. Congratulations on stepping up into that chief role. Best of luck for the next year doing that role. And it leaves one space, so you're trying to recruit one, you said.
We are not going to cover either my substantive post during the year, but we're looking to try and get some cover in at the senior auditor level just to provide a bit more resilience in the team. But the advert's just live, so we'll keep our fingers crossed we get some good candidates there.
Very good, thank you. And we don't use red, amber, green. Well, that's in the appendix. We use green, amber, blue for deferred. Any questions or comments, elected members? Councillor Todd.
Thanks, Convener. Just information, probably an operational thing, but it's great that you guys have absolutely got the fingers on every pulse. How does the decision-making process work in terms of a department needs to increase its borrowing power or a credit card, or does it have to go to CMT? Does it go to the head of department? You know, because the cost of living's going up, cost of materials is going up. So how do you work from a month to month to allow a department to buy materials as they need?
Probably be best answered by the heads of the relevant departments. We do look at, for example, borrowing for capital programme when we carry out audits of that. We've recently carried out an audit of payment cards and looked at the number of cards across the council and the activity on those cards, where they're being spent. But the arrangements around who gets the cards and such are set out within the financial policy bulletins.
Thank you, Paul. Colin, you got a wee bit more on that?
No, probably just to sort of kind of probably clarify in terms of this sort of kind of borrowing power. I take it we're referring to like credit cards, etc., rather than borrowing by departments for services. So there has been obviously an audit completed about the number of departments and recommendations coming from that about those officers that have the authority to use credit cards. I've had discussions with Ailey, and following the report, I think we still have to review that further work needs to be done there in terms of the level and actual need for that level of credit cards, principally because it should be for ad hoc items. The vast majority of purchases and purchases wherever possible should be going through our PCOS and procurement processes and our existing suppliers and not through credit cards. So they're for that sort of emergency situation or ad hoc situation. But we're comfortable that the recommendations that are coming back from heads of service are considered by audit and by ourselves, but still believe that going forward we would like more work to be done in the area.
Elected members, any other comments or questions? No. Okay, if everyone's happy, we'll go back to page 133, paragraph 2. And we're noting the contents of the report, I think, again. Everyone happy with that, elected members? Yeah? Very good. Sufficient work been carried out to inform opinion. Thank you, Paul. And that closes item 9 in the agenda. We're moving on to item 10, which is back to yourself again, Paul. Internal audit plan, governance of the internal audit plan.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to present a proposal for the allocation of internal audit days to support the separate internal audit plans of the IJB and East Ayrshire Leisure Trust, now Ayrshire 360, to ensure compliance with the internal audit professional standards. This is a very brief report. The allocation of days are in line with prior years, and if agreed, these allocations will feature in the full council audit plan coming to GNS on the 4th of June. Paragraphs 3 to 5 outline our progress in transitioning to the global internal audit standards, with the table at paragraph 5 showing good progress made. Further detail on that will come to committee on the 4th of June. Paragraph 7 puts the marker down that a detailed risk-based planning process is underway for 26-27, and the focus of the council plan, informed by Audit Scotland observations nationally, will be to scrutinise and support governance and controls within and between the Health and Social Care Partnership and the IJB, as well as anticipated coverage of spend controls and contract management council-wide. In line with the established arrangements, the plan will also include an allocation of days for the separate standalone plans of both the IJB and Ayrshire 360, with an allocation of 35 and 25 days respectively. The IJB and Ayrshire 360 plans will continue to be approved by their audit committees, but due to timing differences in these processes, this report seeks early approval of the IJB and Ayrshire 360 allocations. The recommendations, including one for approval, are included at paragraph 2, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you again, Paul. Any questions, elected members, or comments? Councillor Sangster.
Yeah, thank you. It's really just for the purposes of the kind of the public out there. Just I think it's important to just tell us what the rationale is behind, allocating 35 and 25 days respectively, from the council internal audit plan, to kind of support these separate internal, audit plans. I mean, how will this allocation support the kind of compliance with professional standards and kind of ensure that kind of robust coverage, I suppose you would call it? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the allocation of our days comes from a risk assessment of our full council internal audit plan. 25 days for Ayrshire 360 was established in the SLA we have with the Leisure Trust. We've deemed that 25 days continues to give us satisfactory coverage there. In terms of the IJB, originally the allocation of days was around 25 days. In recent years, we've increased that to 35 days, given the ongoing challenges within the IJB and the social care sector across the country. So we've maintained that at 35 this year, but we'll also be doing quite significant work with regards to health and social care in the council audit plan, and there'll be a lot of overlap between the IJB and council plans in that regard.
Thank you very much, Paul. Any other questions or comments? Okay, elected members, we're back at page, is it 160? Page 160, recommendations in paragraph 2. Is that a typo, or will that change in future years? We're referring to East Ayrshire Leisure Trust here. It's Ayrshire 360 now, or next year it'll change to Ayrshire 360.
It's just the timing of when the report was written. This was lodged before their name change on the 1st of April. It'll be Ayrshire 360 from now onwards.
Thank you very much. Elected members, are you happy with that? The 2 recommendations there. Agree the allocation, note the contents of the report. Thank you, elected members.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for your attendance today, elected members and officers. And just for information, the next meeting is in June. I'm on annual leave, so Councillor Cogley will be chairing the next one. Thank you.